Over the last few weeks, we've all seen the headlines of used car prices falling. Major news outlets are covering it, YouTubers and content creators are covering it. But if you're somebody who's in the market for a used car and you've been going to your local dealership, then you've probably noticed that used car prices have in fact not fallen. Prices have declined a little bit, but in some cases with some makes and models, prices have actually increased. So this of course begs the question of when are prices going to fall? And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about in this video. Now, it is important to note that technically speaking, prices are falling as we speak. Whether or not we see that price decrease on a consumer level is an entirely different question. Now let's look at a few key metrics. Unfortunately, we don't have all the data from July, but we have a lot of it, and we have enough to show where the trends are heading. If we look at wholesale vehicle values, you can see that this has decreased from May to June. Wholesale vehicle values as a whole have seen a decline, while new cars have actually seen an increase. 3-year vehicle prices are seeing an above average decline, and used vehicle values decreased from June to July. But you can also see here that prices are still up across the board year over year from different makes and models. All of this is from Cox and Manheim. If you're interested in checking out this PowerPoint for yourself and digging into the data, I will include a link to all of my sources down in the description below. But let's take a look at this through a different lens, because though Cox and Manheim are incredibly helpful and they give you a lot of insight on the automotive industry, they really give it from a perspective of a dealer. And I want to look at this from a consumer's perspective. So let's head over to my favorite source for data, one I've been following this entire year, and that is the CarGurus Car Value Index. Now, I know that CarGurus Car Value Index doesn't provide you with all the context that you need in order to gauge and analyze the used car market, but from a consumer's perspective, I think that it gives you some really solid insight, and I've found it really helpful as I've been gauging used car prices over the last year. Now, whenever you look at CarGurus Car Value Index, the data is a little bit mixed, and it depends on the type of car that you're looking at. If you look at something like a Jeep, it is good news for you if you're a buyer, because we've been seeing steady declines in the Jeep market for about 2 or 3 months. You can see that prices really started to fall in May, and they've been steadily falling for the last few months and now sit down about 2.5%. On the flip side, Toyota is almost the exact opposite, and you've seen that over the last couple of months, Toyota's actually increased quite a bit, and it's been seeing a pretty sharp increase. And as of right now, it's up about 1.7%. You can see that Ford has been on a slight incline. It is that number here in blue. And then you can see that Chevy has been on the slight decline. And then the CarGurus Index, which is all of their data combined, is pretty much flat. If we scroll down to dig into this numbers a little bit more, you can see that the body style breakdown is a little bit mixed. There are a handful of cars that have been appreciating in the last 30 days, a handful that have been depreciating, but there hasn't been a ton of movement in either direction. Then if we scroll down to makes, you can see a breakdown of the different makes and the different types of cars and how much their value is being affected. And the vast majority of them have seen a decrease in value in the last 30 days. There hasn't been a ton of movement in either direction, but most have seen a decline of about 1% or less, which is of course good news, but isn't something that's going to be making a drastic impact on you as a buyer. So at the end of the day, the data doesn't lie, and the data shows us that car prices are in fact going down, but they're going down very slowly and by small amounts month by month, 1 to 2%. And at the end of the day, that isn't enough to want you to go out and buy a car, because even if cars decrease in value by 1 to 2%, it is still way too overpriced, and it's too much for you to be paying if you want to get a good deal. So that of course brings the question of this video, which is when are car prices going to fall and when should you expect to buy that car? You see, whenever we look at used car prices and what's going to cause prices to drop substantially, there's kind of 2 key causes that we can look at. Number 1 is increase in inventory. Whenever we talk about increase in inventory, we are already starting to see things getting put into motion to cause for an inventory influx to take place. And we're seeing this in an increase in loan delinquencies and auto repossessions. This is something that experts in these industries have been reporting, and we've been seeing these increase throughout all of 2022. But the problem is an increase in loan delinquencies and an increase in repossessions isn't going to automatically cause a used car to be cheaper for you, because there's this entire trickle-down effect that needs to take place first. For example, you can look at this wonderful graphic that I made to demonstrate exactly what I'm talking about. You can see at the very top of the pyramid are banks and repossession companies, or tow yards. These are the people that are going to first notice a change in tide in the automotive industry. And we're seeing this today. Banks are reporting more delinquencies, repossession companies and tow yards are prepping to repossess more vehicles and thus have more cars in their possession. We are seeing this phase of the process currently taking place as we speak. But things are just now beginning to trickle down. down. In the next phase of the process, we're going to see more and more cars go to auction, and as a result, cars are going to be sold for less at auction. There's going to be no more of paying these inflated prices at auction houses because of the fact there'll be so much more inventory. This is then going to trickle down to the third layer of the process, which is the dealerships and the resellers. These people are going to be able to buy cars for cheaper because they're being sold from auction for cheaper, and then that in turn trickles down to you, the fourth layer of the process, which is the buyer. You're able to buy a car for a cheaper price because the dealership or the reseller was able to buy it for cheaper, and thus they can sell it for you at a discount or at least at fair market value. As of right now, we are at the very top tier of this process. We're seeing this change take place with repossessions and delinquency rates, but it's going to take time for each one of these different phases of the process to go into effect to where you can see a discount with the used car that you want to buy. But this really only explains half of the process, because decrease in demand is also going to have an incredibly important impact on used car prices as well. And this is again something that we're going to be seeing throughout 2022. In 2020 and 2021, it was incredibly cheap to borrow money. People had money in their pockets ready to spend, and at least on the surface, things were looking good from an economic standpoint. But those days are over, because as of today, it is more expensive to borrow money. Consumers are very uncertain about the future. A recession is brewing. Inflation is high, which means the average family is spending hundreds of dollars more per month just to live. People just simply are not certain on what the short-term future is going to hold. And as a result, people are going to put a pause to buying new or used vehicles. This is another aspect of the equation that is getting set into motion, but the true effects of this taking place haven't set into effect yet. But once they do, car prices are going to drop like a bomb. So we are beginning to see both phases of this process take its toll on the used car market. But we are at the very beginning of this process, and these things that are currently in the works and currently in motion, they haven't really had their true effect on used car prices yet. And realistically, we probably won't see these changes take effect for a few more months at least. My prediction is that over the next 3 to 6 months, we will begin to see prices decrease. And this decrease will most likely, in fact, almost certainly not be linear. Some months and some weeks will see a slight increase. Other weeks will see a more aggressive decline. But the overall trend will be in our favor. As the economy worsens and as inventory increases, you'll see these price decreases be more and more substantial. Today, you're seeing 1 to 2% price decreases month to month. But in Q4, you may see 3 to 5% decreases. I've said it before in a video, and I'll continue to say it again. If you're somebody that can wait 3 to 6 months to buy a used car, I highly encourage you to do this. Everything is set in motion for the used car market to absolutely drop significantly. But it's going to take time for all of these things to begin to take effect to the point where you as a consumer can see these changes happening in real time. Because as of today, even though prices are technically falling, you aren't able to see that if you're just somebody who's casually shopping on the internet. In the meantime, I think it's a great idea to do research on which car you want to buy, what trim level you want, what year, model, and mileage you want, and what is a fair price that you're willing to pay for that. Because once you know what price you want to pay for a car, you're able to stay on top of the deals in your area, and you're really able to jump on a car whenever you find one that's a good deal. If I was in the market for a used car personally, that is exactly what I would be doing. I think that buyers will be in a much more advantageous position in Q4 and towards the end of 2022, if not the beginning of 2023. And I think that 2023 specifically will be the year for buying cars. Everything will begin to drop substantially. We will see these huge declines that so many people are talking about today, but it's going to take time for everything to go into effect. So I encourage for any car buyer to be as patient as possible, because changes are happening. You just might not notice them. But like always, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it. So make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell. And I will see you guys in the next video.